Hello, everyone. My guest today is Greg Segal. He's the founder and CEO of Alice, an AI-powered corporate gifting and incentive platform. Founded in December 2015, Alice tells a corporate gifter exactly what to send and the most impactful times to send. Before Alice, he was founder and CEO of OnePika, one of the premier global e-commerce agencies. He also invested, scaled, and aided the acquisitions of several smaller retailers. OnePika was successfully acquired in December 2012 by a holding company in San Fran. He received his BA in graphic design from Boston University in 2001 with a strong focus on computer science. Greg, are you ready to take us to the top?
Let's rock.
All right. Last time we spoke, if I remember correctly, you were very much in this kind of stage of figuring out if, the revenue stream that Alice was kind of going to grow was going to be, relationships with gift vendors that you'd recommend to these corporate buyers or an actual technology, pure play SaaS kind of company. Where are you today?
Yeah, so it's actually evolved a lot since we talked about a year ago. So the whole company obviously still makes a lot of money off of the gifts itself and the transactions, but a majority of the money is coming in from SaaS. So we've actually built this out because the product and the platform that we've built, we've just learned has a lot more value than just the actual sending the gifts itself. It's evolved since just being, hey, this is a gifting platform. I can go into more like on the use cases if you want to hear more about that, because that's been one of the big things that we've done. Also, we've raised a big round of funding, which you probably saw as well.
Yeah. So give us the update news on the funding. So how much total have you raised now to date?
Yep. So we raised $5.4 million from three of the top investors in Boston, one out in Palo Alto, and then one up in Toronto. And that's pretty sure where we are with the funding.
That's 5.4 altogether, or just the last round?
Last round.
Okay. So what is it altogether?
Altogether, about 5.9.
5.9. Okay, very good. So this was your first equity round then. Very good. Okay, so walk me through and give me a sense too. You mentioned earlier that you have a large volume and a large amount of revenues coming from just the gifting side of things. Quickly tell me that revenue model, and then tell me why the transition into SaaS and how you've scaled.
Yeah, so the revenue model itself, again, is that we have deals with all these merchants across the globe. And that's something that we've been working on now for close to 2.5 years. But the big play has been that we've moved over to focusing on one major use case, which is gifting for prospecting. So we send a gift off to somebody, and then in order for them to accept the gift, they take a meeting, with us. And that was just something we just saw from, we had a few hundred customers that were going through the system with us and using it. And we looked for the trends and how people were actually, using this across, all different departments inside the organization. So what we ended up doing was saying, okay, well, there's a lot of value here because, if we're able to send a gift off to somebody and be able to generate a meeting, then there's obviously a SaaS platform that we can, or a fee that we can actually charge, because the value of what we're adding and bringing to these folks is much higher than just, hey, let's just send this gift off to these individual folks. And again, remember, part of the model too is that we're not sending the actual gift, we're sending the option for the gift. So we focus very much on the gift itself being something that the recipient actually wants, which is why we've had such high conversion.
Yeah, so I want to understand more about that, because remember when I was first preparing for this interview last time, I think either you sent me or I sent myself a gift, like the option for the gift, just to see what it felt like. And my first thought was, I just don't know if people are going to put in this 16-digit code or whatever from the postcard on the online platform to actually claim the prize. You've said you've kind of built, it sounds like some sort of AI or something to make sure that the incentive is very strong for me to do that.
Yeah, correct. So, we've evolved a lot, over the last year, and evolved the delivery mechanism of how we actually get the gift link or the gift option to you. So it started off when you used it last, probably about a year ago, we only had handwritten cards, and it was a very long code. So the first thing is that we've shortened the code down to 8 digits, which has increased conversion, considerably. And secondly, there's a whole entire follow-up cadence that happens after the gift is there. So even if you don't put in the code, we end up sending you a link to get right to the gift via email. So what ends up happening is that a lot of the additional conversion happens later on. So they might get the box, which we have a whole bunch of different options for boxes and handwritten cards now. And they will get that and then see the code. And some of those folks will put in the code, of which we try and get about 50% of the people to do that. And then the other 50% will end up waiting for the email or getting a reminder email, and then that'll have the actual link inside of it itself.
Okay, so you have, in a given month, 100% of these invites go out. What percentage of those are claimed via the postcard, and what percent right now are claimed via lifecycle marketing?
Well, I think there's a better way of thinking about that, which is, if 100% of these are sent out, when it's prospecting, it's cold, meaning like, I don't know this person. And we're starting to obviously experiment with like further down the sales funnel. But when it's a cold prospect, Right now, we can see anywhere between, let's say, 6 is our lowest, all the way up to what we just had, which is about 30%, acceptance rate. And then 50% of those will be by handwritten card or by the branded box and the code being entered in versus, the other 50% based on the actual gift link.
And over what period of time? Is that a month after they receive the card or send the gift?
Usually we let it go between 45 days and 60 days.
Okay, got it.
And it's actually what happens is somebody might even accept a gift, and then it's not until 45 days later that you actually get the meeting with them. Or you might actually say, hey, you get this big, what always happens, a big wave up front, and then there's this trickle, and then all of a sudden there's some of these big pops that happen, a little bit later on. And we're just learning. It's all different industries have different conversion rates. It depends on how saturated the market is for this type of direct mail. And it's just a very interesting, we're generating a ton of data around this based on all these different use cases on how people are using it.
So if a CMO is watching right now, or a head of sales or chief revenue officer is listening, and they say, I want to run a test on this, I'm going to send 100 gifts out to prospects that just have not returned any of our cold emails. They send out 100 today. What you're saying is over the next 45 to 60 days, 30 of those will accept. And of the 30, 15 or so will be from the manual code, from the physical mail. Another 15 will be from the reminder emails. Hey, you have a gift from Alice, open it, redeem it, etc. And then some period after that, those 30 people will then book that meeting with their sales reps.
Yeah, so it would be between 6 and 30% is what I would say, depending on where and what type of industry it's in, and who they're trying to target. So if you're trying to target CIOs, for example, you're going to have a lower conversion rate than going after somebody that's lower in the funnel inside of an organization, because those folks are getting solicited to as necessarily, because sometimes they're not the decision maker, but they have budgetary control. So that's how that would work. So if a CMO is listening to this right now, or a head of inside sales or demand gen, then the whole goal here is that you're actually using this as another touch point in the target accounts that you're trying to go after right now, to be able to get their attention, and then be able to use your inside sales team or whatnot to be able to follow up and then actually get that meeting. But we also have another piece of functionality in there now, which we just launched over this last month, which is calendar integration. So when you actually send a gift, we can actually have a calendar invite automatically added to the calendar when the person accepts the gift. So it's circuiting a lot of that, because what we learned is that a lot of times the BDRs would be like, oh, well, now I got to go send an invite on top of seeing that this gift was accepted. And right now we're playing with and checking how that affects conversion across the whole entire flow.
That's smart. What are people paying for just the SaaS component of this per month on average?
Anywhere between lowest will be $1,000 a month, and the most expensive is probably, $10K plus.
Okay. And
depends on the size of the company, amount of gifts there's.
I was going to say, that's what you're doing. It's dependent on the size of the company and number of gifts.
Right.
Okay. And give us more about the background here. So launch year was which year?
So we launched in December of 2015 with a very alpha product. We officially went live at the end, the holiday season in 2016. And 2017 is what I call sort of the spaghetti on the wall year. That was sort of when we talked, where we were talking about all the different use cases on how people were using it, from work anniversary gifts to closing gifts to what we found out the prospecting side of things, to customer appreciation gifts. And so we've just really tried to double down on one specific use case, and that's really what's catapulted our growth.
And what have you scaled to today in terms of total customers?
It's about 5 times what we talked about last time. So we're probably in the 500 to 600 range right now of customers.
Yeah. I think you were at about 100 last time, so that makes sense. So I mean, Greg, can I take the 500 times 1,000? I mean, you guys are doing $500,000 a month right now in revenue.
You can get around that number. I'm not going to give you the exact number, but yeah.
Okay. Well, are any of those numbers high or low? I'm just obviously multiplying there.
Well, we have of those 500 customers, some are paying small amounts, some are paying much larger amounts, and then some are one-off customers too. So,
but I thought you said minimum was 1,000.
Well, that's for the SaaS customers themselves. So we have of that group of customers, I'd say about 10% of them are SaaS customers right now, and those are the folks that are paying us that revenue. But then we also have all the GMV, or the gift volume that's going through from a lot of customers that aren't paying SaaS fee but are using it for work anniversary gifts. Like we have Envision, uses us for all of their work anniversary gifts, for example, and they're putting through a large number. They have 500 plus employees, so you can sort of do the math against that.
Got it. So you're still working on converting people paying you just on a GMV basis to get them to upgrade or change to the SaaS model.
It's a much newer model that we've just launched over the last last, let's say 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, look, that math would just be 50 times 1,000. You can kind of back into it there, right? But walk me through. I mean, I would imagine the money you make on the kind of just gross merchandise volume side of the business is obviously significantly less in terms of margins than what you can make on the SaaS side. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah, it's about a quarter of what we'll make on the SaaS side.
Yeah. And then what are some of the metrics you're tracking actively internally? Is really GMV per month kind of the thing you're really focused on, or what metrics matter most to you?
No, there's different types of metrics that we look at, especially at the stage of the company. Most people, obviously revenue, that's one big one we're trying to see. We're also trying to track, daily and weekly active users internally. You also want to track how many gifts are going through based on each individual user that's actually in using the platform as well. But then we also have other internal metrics too, just based on like conversion rates. Because the conversion rates to us is really the results on how the use case is actually performing. So we try and track that very closely with each individual customer. And then, as a whole across the different industries that we're actually doing that as well. Because that really is what the fundamental success and what the SaaS platform is built off of. Because if we're able to get you a meeting right now, which will happen anywhere between, a third to an eighth of the cost of what it is now, then that's a huge reason for you to be able to pay. And there's a lot of value in that beyond just saying, well, it's a gift. Like to us, we're not a gifting company. We're a software company.
Yep. So in 2017, how many options for gifts were sent?
Oh my God, in the tens of thousands.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, our average customer right now is sending at least 1,000 gift options, to folks, per year. And then again, there's a certain conversion, that's on that as well, because again, the beauty of the model that we built is that when you send the gift option, they only pay when the gift is accepted.
Yep.
So instead of you saying, hey, I'm going to go send off, 50 or 100 Yeti coolers, to these folks, and we can say, well, cool, send those same 100 Yeti coolers or 1,000 Yeti coolers off to these folks, but do it using Alice. And then you're only going to pay for about between 6 and 30% of whatever's accepted.
Yep.
So you end up saving money overall.
So let me ask you a different question. In 2017, what was GMV for you?
That's a good question. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it was in the millions.
Okay, very good. And what do you think you'll do in 2018?
I'm hoping right now we're aiming to quote 4 times that right now.
Okay, good. So like what, you break 5 million, you think? Yeah.
Easy.
Very good. And I'm curious, when you went out and because you just raised, when you were obviously negotiating your valuation, how did you try and convince investors to give you more of a SaaS valuation versus a lower margin GMV model valuation?
Well, I looked at, first of all, we were very lucky. We had 15 investors that wanted to come into the round. So we were very lucky, and I did a lot of due diligence. I spent almost between probably closer to 6 weeks doing due diligence on every one of the funds. And if you look at all the funds that we ended up choosing, I was very mindful of bringing on all funds that had operators as the folks that I'd be working with. So if you look at like Eric Paley from Founder Collective, or you look at Larry Bond from General Catalyst, or you look at Peter Blacklow from Boston Seed, for example, all these guys had run businesses before, so they had empathy and understanding for what the business was all about. So when you talk about valuation, I also looked at it in terms of, I was optimizing for the investors instead of the valuation. Like we probably could have eked out another $2 to $3 million on valuation, but we decided not to. And I decided to go with the investors that I wanted based on, what they thought, in the stage that we are in the business, to go from there. So
yeah.
From my perspective, the valuation and looking at it from a SaaS business was just like, look, there's a huge opportunity here because of the early indications of what we were able to do with prospecting and the early indications of what we were able to do to generate ROI for our customers. So when I backed out my numbers and I showed them what we thought we can be, that was an easy way for us to be able to justify the valuation.
And what was year-over-year growth rate in terms of revenue?
We had done like 8 times. So we were in a really good position. We were growing, I think at the time that we raised, anywhere between 25 and 50% month over month growth.
Got it. And now, Greg, I have to be fair here, obviously, too. I mean, you're growing, but you're not in the millions and millions of revenue per year yet. So you're doubling, call it 100 to 500, 500 to a million, et cetera, correct?
Yeah, correct. I mean, we're in the millions now, but yeah that's a good indication of why, it's easier when you're earlier on to be able to apply that. Yeah.
Of course. Now, was 2017 the year that you passed $1 million in revenue? Okay, good. Very good. All right. Last question here on team size before we wrap up. What do you guys at today now in terms of team?
We're at 40 right now.
Oh, 40. Good. All in Boston?
Nope, we're split between all over the globe, actually 8 countries.
Oh,
right
wow.
now.
So we're a remote team.
Yeah, it's a very, I'd say, so it's about 75% of the team is remote right now, but they're full-time employees of ours.
That's great. All right, Greg, let's wrap up with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
Yes, Brian Chesney from Airbnb.
Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building the business?
Question.
Besides your own, of course.
Notion right now. Yeah, actually, we're using our own tool. Yeah, Alice for Alice is a huge thing for us. But Notion, actually, which is a knowledge based system, is probably one of my favorites right now.
Number 4, how many hours of sleep are you getting every night?
I aim for between 7 to 8, and I get it pretty right.
That's good. And what's your situation? Married, single, kiddos?
I am married, and I have a daughter that just turned 2 a couple days ago.
Congratulations. Very good. And how old are you?
I'm 38.
38. All right, Greg, last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
To be more open and to really listen to folks.
Guys, there you have it. Listen, be more open from Greg. Got a new way to prospect coming at you with Alice, essentially sending out gift options. It helps you control your costs and only pay for what your prospects accept. They launched back in 2015, really had their spaghetti on the wall year, as he said, in 2017. They also that year passed $1 million in revenue. More importantly, they now have over 500 customers sending gifts. They've been able to change 500 of those customers and convert them into SaaS product customers, right? So about 50 folks there have converted. Team of 40 based in remote locations all around the world. Greg, thank you so much for taking us to the top.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Nathan.